Hey Blood fans, Drake here. I just read this wild, dark fantasy novelette called Bloodforge, and I've got to tell you about it. It's got vampires, werewolves, wendigos, and this crazy powerful being called Bloodforge who can make weapons out of his own blood. There's this epic battle to save the world from a lunar apocalypse by locking this mystical time gate. The main characters get these insane powers like slowing down time and devouring people's lifespans. It's non-stop action with plot twists galore. If you're into gritty, imaginative fantasy with unique magic systems, you need to check this out. The world building is so creative and the fight scenes are intense. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. Let me know if you want more details. I could talk about this book all day.
Ever wonder what would happen if Stephen King wrote an HR manual? Today's story about a mysterious hitchhiker with magical blood jerky might give us an idea.
The way this dark fantasy novelette blends corporate culture with supernatural horror is genuinely unique. Not many stories start with an HR professional offering poisoned snacks.
You know what's fascinating about this piece? The author takes these well-worn horror tropes, the mysterious hitchhiker, the truck stop setting, and completely subverts our expectations. Instead of heading into slasher territory, we're launched into this rich, dark fantasy world.
Speaking of subverting expectations, let's talk about how this story handles traditional monster mythology. The pure-hearted Wendigo concept alone challenges everything we know from folklore.
And the character development is remarkable. Take Lilac Dendron, she transforms from an ordinary farmer into this powerful being called Death Lilac. It's like watching a superhero origin story, but with this fascinating dark fantasy twist.
The author's world-building really shines in how they handled the power system. Blood magic isn't new to fantasy, but making it into beef jerky? That's, definitely innovative.
And let's talk about how the story tackles themes of transformation and identity. Every character who consumes the blood undergoes this profound change, but they maintain their essential nature, like how Lilac's first act with her new powers is to save her cat.
That reminds me of classical mythology, where ordinary humans often gain divine powers, but retain their human perspectives. How do you think this connects to modern fantasy literature?
Well, it's interesting you mention that because this story seems to bridge several genres. We've got elements of body horror when Fred consumes the jerky cosmic horror with the Moongate, and even a touch of urban fantasy with the modern setting. It's like the author is creating their own unique subgenre.
The Moongate concept particularly stands out. It's giving me strong Lovecraftian vibes, but with a more optimistic twist.
Oh, exactly. Unlike Lovecraft's usually hopeless cosmos, these characters actually have agency. They're not just victims of vast cosmic forces, they become cosmic forces themselves. The transformation of Catch into Chrono Catch isn't just a name change, it's a fundamental shift in how these characters relate to the universe.
The way the story handles power dynamics is pretty remarkable, too. Instead of the usual chosen one narrative, we have this network of pure-hearted individuals who each bring something unique to the table.
You know what really strikes me? The way the author weaves together these different supernatural elements without it feeling forced. Like having vampires, wendigos, and werewolves in the same story could easily become chaotic, but here it feels organic.
That's because they're all connected through this central theme of purity of heart, which is such an interesting choice for a dark fantasy.
And let's discuss how the author plays with the concept of sacrifice. Ingram's death isn't just tragic, it's transformative. His blood becomes this legacy that empowers others, which feels like a really powerful metaphor for how influence and knowledge get passed down.
The Franthial appearing at the end adds this interesting layer of cosmic bureaucracy to the whole thing, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's like finding out there's an HR department for the universe itself. The story manages to make even ancient cosmic beings feel somewhat corporate, which circles back beautifully to Ingram's initial cover story about working in human resources.
Well, I suppose managing supernatural powers and preventing apocalyptic events is the ultimate form of resource management.
Looking at the broader implications, this story really challenges our assumptions about good and evil, about who can be a hero, and about the nature of transformation. It's like a masterclass in taking familiar elements and making them feel completely fresh.
So what do you think this tells us about the future of dark fantasy as a genre?
I think it shows there's still plenty of room for innovation, even with well-worn tropes. By combining the mundane with the magical, the corporate with the cosmic, authors can create something that feels both familiar and completely new. And maybe that's the real magic of this story. It makes us look at both the ordinary and the extraordinary in a different light.